Good afternoon. Just earlier, yesterday already, I noticed that Christmas decorations are already coming up. Christmas is still how long ago? How long in advance? About a month. Oh, wow. Are you all celebrating Christmas? Yeah. Doesn't matter, right? Every holiday we celebrate. Whether it's a Christian, Muslim, Chinese. We are very tolerant. When it comes to holidays, everyone is very tolerant. Everyone very happy to participate in everyone's holidays. Up there near the recording studio, they also have that a big Christmas tree. So in the West, we usually exchange gifts on that occasion. So it's quite nice. And I still remember when I was growing up already a little bit, when I understood it's not Santa Claus who's bringing the gifts. So sometimes the grandparents, they hand over gifts to the grandchildren. And I was already mid-20s or something. And I remember observing actually when the kids are getting the gifts. And of course the kids will unpack and they will look inside, say, oh, awesome, nice, some toys. Or sometimes, okay, not so special, depends what it is. But then I also observed the grandmother. And some amazing, looking at her while the child is unpacking the gift. The joy of her seemed to be something way more than the joy of the gift. The joy of the kid unpacking the gift. And I realized, giving itself is enjoyable. It's a pleasant thing. Looking at her face, her facial expressions, the smile, and just the joy of watching the grandkids unpacking the toys or whatever it is. That in itself seemed to be much more enjoyable sometimes than the actual gift. So sometimes the giver gets more than the recipient. Isn't that astonishing? Normally we think the one who receives is the one who gets something. And sometimes to us monks also similar things happen. In Taiping, when we go on alms round, when we go to the market, we stand somewhere. And I remember one of the ladies, also quite an elderly lady, coming regularly. She has a bottle of water, just like this one. And then she very mindfully takes it and puts it inside the alms bowl. And then she says, thank you. She says thank you, you know. Normally we are trained in the West, we should say thank you, not the one who receives. But then she has also the understanding, being probably a devoted Dhamma practitioner or Buddhist, that giving is also something, you get something in return. The good karma, of course, the happiness, the joy of supporting. So I'm always very inspired or surprised almost when I see her saying, thank you. So she gives one monk one bottle, another monk, thank you. She puts it in and says thank you at the same time. Very sweet actually. So also it fosters a sense of gratitude, of course not just for her, but also for those of us who receive. And with that I would also say comes a sense of responsibility, isn't it? Because when we receive something from others, then also we should use that thing, that item, we should use it well, take care of it, and not waste it. In fact, the monks even have a rule that if a gift is given to us out of faith, then we are not supposed to bring that item to ruin. You shouldn't just discard it or damage it or throw it away. So at least we should use it a couple of times before maybe passing it on to somebody else or something. So I think also the principle could also apply out to everyone, so that when we receive something or when we get something from someone, that we take well care of it, to maintain it, to maybe even repair it when things get damaged rather than just throwing them away. And in this way also honor and respect the gratitude of the original supporter, sponsor, parents, whoever gives us something. And then for the monastics again, it's also a reminder, we're getting all these things for free, food, shelter, and so on. Let me use that energy well. Let me practice the Dhamma. Because that's why People often come and support us with the hope or expectation that then the monks will hopefully practice well. So I'm always astonished how living here in Malaysia or in Buddhist countries earlier in my monk's life, and how the Sangha is supported, even though these are not our relatives. Of course, it's very normal that parents, grandparents will look after each other. But then, with the Sangha, we are all strangers to each other. So I always find it very unusual somehow to receive things from people I've never seen before. And of course, one can get used to that, but still seeing that every act is an individual act of generosity, of kindness, the wholesomeness behind it, I find very heartwarming and uplifting. And also motivating for everyone to practice well, to use that energy, all the material support we're given for our spiritual practice. Even when you think in your own life, of course, you've also been supported by parents typically. What did parents do for you? If you think back in your own life, anything your parents have done for you?
They always understand our fears and comfort us.
They understand your fears, your concerns, your worries, and they will try to comfort you. As a child, yeah, definitely as a child, maybe sometimes even as a grown-up, right? And what age would you say was that aspect of accommodating for your fears? What age were you when that was the most important and most helpful for you? How old were you at that time?
Just born.
Well, just born, yeah. Other things that parents have done for us?
They never fail to provide for us.
Never fail to provide material resources, right? Without parents, we would have been quite lost. We humans are not quite capable of surviving very well without not just a few weeks or months, like most animals, but we need years before we can stand on our own feet. Actually, quite literally, it takes a long time before we can even walk. And even then, we still need a lot of support at the same time. So our parents, they show us the world, explain things to us, take a lot of time. At the beginning also, if you're a small kid, you cannot even sleep. He wakes up in the middle of the night. So then, out of compassion, parents will have to get up also, comfort the baby, and then hopefully he will sleep for another few hours before you have to get up again. So, well, then later, some of the roles reverse. Then you grow up, you become an adult. Of course, as we grow up, our parents also get older. And then the parents, at some point, also might need our support, our help. And just as we needed help with walking back in the days, at some point they may need our help, but they are not so stable anymore. But they might need somebody to lean on, or maybe even cannot walk at all anymore. Or even when we were small, we couldn't even clean ourselves, we go to the bathroom, we couldn't even do our toilet business on our own. Interestingly, as we get older, our parents get older, the same will be the case for us. There comes a point maybe where we cannot look after ourselves anymore, and then hopefully there's somebody helping and supporting us. So that's also typically a responsibility traditionally where children or grandchildren sometimes would have to step in. So it's kind of interesting how even the same kind of activities, just with reverse roles, just wait another 60 years and then you will be on the giving side. So therefore it's also quite nice to see when actually children are happy and willing at least to support the parents as they grow up, look after them, care for them, or at least help to organize so that somebody is supporting them at the same time. You don't always have to do everything on your own, but at least we can try to arrange things accordingly and come for visits or spend some time together. That also, of course, is important. This is also one of the things sometimes I ask when when they meet older people or people who are almost close to death, often they invite the monks to come because either they invite the monks for doing some chanting, some blessings, as people often expect, or for a bit of Dhamma sharing. And I really like to ask often one or two questions. The first question is usually, what are the kind of things, when you look back in your life, that you regret, or that you would do differently if you had a second chance? And I remember I've spoken about it also a few weeks back. And one of the most common answers is, I regret that maybe I didn't have enough time for my own children or for my grandchildren, or maybe I spent too much time for work. Or another common one is, when my parents got old, I wasn't free to look after them. I was busy with other things. So this is also a not uncommon regret that we have. Where we know actually that was a time where they would have needed our support, but we were not ready, we were not willing, not free. Wasn't the right time. But when is it ever the right time? Is it ever convenient? Is it ever convenient to get up in the middle of the night? You think for our parents, was it convenient for them to change our diapers, to cook for us for years? Was it convenient for them when we went to school, to drive us to school back and forth, or take care for us, go shopping with us, so many things? So of course, it was not always convenient. So we make time. It's a sacrifice, yes it is. But also we get a lot in return. And the most important thing we get in return is the sense of gratitude, that's what we have in advance, but also a sense of opportunity. I'm able to give something back. And often it's actually just a small thing we're giving back. But at least I can do something for my beloved parents, siblings, friends. Again, giving is sometimes better than receiving, or more enjoyable. So sometimes we have to remind ourselves, there's an opportunity to help, to support. Have you heard of this group? A very rich businessmen. They made a group, international group, where they do certain activities together. It's actually almost like a bit of a secret society. And they don't wear the suits anymore. They go undercover, so to speak. And they assemble every now and then. I think what I've heard, something once a month or once a half a year, depending on the group. And then they go into a city. And then they dress up very casually, and nobody recognizes them. And what they do, I could almost not believe. They go into a public toilet. And then they take all the cleaning tools from there and clean the public restroom. Something like an airport, or airport nowadays is a bit difficult because there's already cleaning stuff there. They might not even let you do it. But more in the train stations, bus stations, nobody will complain if you go in and help to clean there. So they will just do all this very menial work, which we often regard to some degree as, we wouldn't expect businessmen to go in. So they let go of all their status, all their conditioning, and just fully hands-on do some of those jobs. And this is meant as a spiritual practice for renouncing our ego, or to see how does that feel when I do some basic work, help society at large, with some very hands-on activity. I was very surprised, but also very inspired when I heard about that there are people out there who are doing that. And just not for being known, or this not posting on Facebook like nowadays, and for self-promotion, that I can imagine. But no, they do none of that. It's just for their own spiritual well-being and for maturity, growth, humbleness, humility. Quite nice. So I see also some businessmen here in the audience. So when are we going? Are you ready? Do we have some buckets here? We bring them along and then we go to the next railway station, KL Central. They're waiting for us. Made the arrangements already for you. So yeah, these are the kind of activities where we get out of our comfort zone. Say, okay, how can I support? In what ways could my help be needed? Regardless of whatever status we may have, whatever treatment we otherwise might get, and then do something really simple and with our own hands. Quite nice. Like one of our Dhamma brothers, since years, regularly is releasing birds or turtles and fish and letting them free for those who have originally been meant for sale or for slaughter. So again, it's another very wholesome activity where, yeah, why do we do that? Well, out of compassion, out of kindness. Want to bring a little bit of good into the world. And that just fills the heart with joy. And also, I think there's an inspiration also for others. Maybe do it together. I bring my Dhamma friends along. Yeah, let's go to the river. Let's buy a bunch of fish. How many does he usually buy? Is it once a week or once a month? How often is that happening? Once a month. And how many fish does he get at that occasion? 150 kilos, including the water. Or just the fish alone. Oh my goodness. I didn't even know so many. 150 kilos of fish. Okay, that's a lot. So yeah, and on a regular basis, together with a small group of Dhamma friends, quite nice. Then bring them to the river or stream. Where does he bring it to?
The forest reserve stream.
Oh, okay. And then the fishermen already waiting downstream, you know. He knows, okay, it's Sunday again, and Kyung will come to release to release the fish. So downstream they're waiting already with the net and with the angle. Hopefully not. But in India also there's a similar business model. I have seen also how they have a similar business with the birds. So you can also go there, devotees go, and you can release a bird and give him freedom. It's quite nice. But then also sometimes we can observe, the bird flies out from the cage, free. And then he flies one round around the block and comes back and goes back into the cage. It's been well trained. It's been trained basically to come back all the time, and he gets fed and gets some little reward, and basically that's the business, you know. So you can sell the same bird 500 times in a row because the bird will just fly, look at the clock, and then come. It's time to come home. Something like that. But then, is it then still wholesome? Is it still wholesome? Yeah, it is. Because the intention of the person who releases the bird is wholesome. It's one of giving freedom. The intention of the bird catcher, that's his karma. It's separate. The intention of the one who is releasing the bird, that's his or her karma. It's separate from the other one. So we cannot say just because the bird, and then the intention of the bird to come back is also his karma. So again, there are three beings involved, and everyone gets a slightly different karma on account of what they do. So therefore also when we are generous, when we are kind, or when we see others, or maybe they are not so kind, or maybe some people even seem to take advantage of our generosity, should we then stop? For example, if there's a birthday happening in your family, and then you're always making the cake, but your siblings, your sisters, never anyone bothers to make a cake, but you always do. At some point, somebody might remind you, or maybe you realize, why am I the one who is every time supposed to bake the cake? How nobody else is doing anything? But then, if I enjoy making a cake, it doesn't matter whether other people take advantage of that or whether they take it more easy. It doesn't matter. If I get joy out of that, I enjoy doing that, that's fine. We shouldn't stop just because other people, maybe you can even see, they just make use of that, of my generosity, of my kindness. Never mind. Let them make use of that. Even better for me, then I have more recipients for my good karma. So it's not a competition. Just doing more of a good thing is good for me. So I don't need to worry about when others do less. Or even if you see somebody's taking a bit of advantage of us, doesn't have to be a problem. I don't need to stop doing that. Yes, I can sometimes also see that, but never mind. If I do something good, something wholesome, somebody would like to benefit from that, that's fine. So we don't need to be so calculative all the time. Oh yeah, it has to be everyone doing exactly the same amount. No need. So actually that incident happened exactly to my mother. In her family, she likes to make cakes, biscuits. Christmas time is around the corner. I can already imagine her starting early with making biscuits. But then also at some point she realized, actually my father reminded her, why come that you always spend so much time for making all the sweets and cakes for the whole family? And your sister is not doing the same thing. The other auntie also is not doing much. Why you always have to spend weeks ahead of time to do all of that? And it was interesting because when she was reminded about that, she also lost a little bit the joy in preparing it. And then somehow we had a conversation, and then somehow we realized, it doesn't matter actually. It doesn't matter whether the others also do the same or not. Because that's not why she was doing it anyway. She just did it on her own volition, her own initiative, and for her own joy. So in a sense, I think I even spoke with my dad. I told him, actually you don't need to discourage my mom from doing that. If she enjoys it, she gets happiness out of that, it's great. It doesn't have to be equal among all the siblings, everyone doing exactly the same thing. And then there's maybe another area where the others are more proactive. When they go on holiday together, the other one is a pretty good organizer. So she will spend a lot of time planning, organizing. My mother wouldn't get involved with that. She just comes along. So yeah, you see, sometimes you give, sometimes you get. That's fine. No need to calculate exactly, okay, how many minutes did I spend? How many minutes did you spend? So then what are we going to do with all that good karma, with all that wholesomeness? Well, hopefully we get some benefit both in this life, and if there's rebirth, surely that kind of karma will lead to a good, positive, pleasant abiding in the future. Some people say, well then, how can we know there's rebirth? How can we know for sure there's rebirth? Well, the Buddha says, let rebirth aside for a moment. Even if there's no rebirth, the one who is generous, who upholds his virtual standards, his virtue, his precepts, even in this very life, you see the benefits. You get benefits from that. Your life will be in order. You will not go to prison because you're an ethical person, so you're not stealing, you're not killing. Your relationships will be good because you're not lying, you're not gossiping, you're not using harsh speech. So by upholding our virtue, even in this very life, we can see the benefits. We don't have to wait until next life. But if there is a next life, then surely these actions will lead to good rebirth. So then you win on both sides, both in the present life and in the future life. Even if there is no rebirth, also nothing lost. Then you have only the present life benefits in the here and now. Great. For example, the opposite, the person who does not account for rebirth and thinks there's no afterlife, the person might not see any value in doing good or avoiding doing evil. So seeing no harm in doing evil and seeing no benefit on the long run for doing good, you might indulge in harsh speech, lying, stealing, fraud, and so on. Also see no value in generosity and kindness. So that view that there's no afterlife will result in actions that are often more self-centered and more short-term oriented. So then, his best case scenario is that if there's no afterlife, then no problem, right? He gets away with it, so to speak, if there's no afterlife. But even in the present life, there will be some consequences from these actions. Every now and then the person will understand, he's been cheating or lying. So there will be some consequences to be faced. So even in the present life, there's beneficial results of that action. And if there is a future existence, surely those actions will lead to a lower existence. So just from a gambling or from a statistical point of view, the belief in rebirth, even if it's a blind belief, is still a wholesome, a beneficial view, a beneficial belief, because it leads to actions that are wholesome and leads to avoiding the unwholesome. And if there is no rebirth, nothing lost, then at least I have a good life in the present life. A wholesome life, my life is in order, I'm not getting into conflict with the law or with family, with society. And if there is a next life, then you win on both sides. So it's actually rational. There's an interesting way of looking at it. It's actually rational to believe in rebirth, because the consequences and the chances are higher by upholding that belief, and that will lead to actions that will be to benefit both in the here and now and possibly also the afterlife. Whereas if I reject the idea of rebirth entirely and don't see value in wholesome, don't see danger in unwholesome, then in the present life, in the best case scenario, even in the best case scenario, in the present life, I will sometimes be in trouble. And still the best case scenario, there's no afterlife, okay, at least afterwards I have no consequences. But if there is an afterlife, then surely the consequences will not be good. So in this way, the belief in rebirth is actually a rational belief. Not because we can prove that it is right. We don't have any science yet to clearly prove there is rebirth. It's rational because it leads to good results, either in this life or in both lives. So in that sense, it's a rational thing to do. If I can only win and not lose, just imagine you could go to a casino, you could go to gambling, and there's one table, and most tables you can win and lose. You play roulette, you can put your money on red, but then sometimes the black color comes, the black number comes, okay, you lose. You put your money on black, the red one comes, also you lose. Sometimes you win, of course, 50-50 almost. But just imagine there's a table where wherever you put your chips, you might win or at least not lose. Why? Isn't that a great table to play? You might not always win, because there might not be an afterlife, similar to the afterlife. There might not be an afterlife. You do a lot of wholesome things, but there's no afterlife. Okay, at least you have not lost anything, right? But if there is, you win. You will have a great afterlife by doing a lot of wholesome things. So it's like a gambling table where you put your chip, you may win, or at least not lose. That would be fantastic. Whereas the one who has the opposite belief, well, he may get away. His best case scenario is not winning, but also not losing. And his worst case scenario is he loses on both sides, in this life and the future life, by upholding and performing unwholesome deeds, not seeing value in wholesomeness, not seeing the danger in unwholesomeness. So this principle is found in Majjhima Nikaya number 60, the Ariyadhammika Sutta. So you can read it on your own, what the Buddha speaks about in this way. It's not proving about rebirth, but it is showing that, rationally speaking, the belief in rebirth is a rational thing to entertain. Interestingly, back in European history, or history of the Catholic Church, there also has actually been a 16th, 17th century mathematician, Blaise Pascal, and physicist. And he also formulated a very similar principle as what we've just spoken about. It's called Pascal's wager. The same thing. If you're a betting person, he said, you better believe in God. Because if you believe in God and there is God, well, you will go to heaven. If you believe in God and there's no God, well, nothing lost. But if you don't believe in God and there is a God, you will go to hell. supposedly, according to the church. Or if you don't believe in God and there is none, well, okay, nothing lost. But then you see the believer, the one who believes in God, in his best case scenario, he goes to heaven. In the worst case scenario, nothing lost. For the non-believer, in his worst case scenario, he will go to death, to hell. That's quite bad. So he said, therefore, it is rational to believe in God. But interestingly, the Buddha was quite happy with that approach. But the Christian church, the Catholic church, was not in favor. They even released an official statement in response to Pascal's way of thinking, Pascal's wager. And they said, those who believe in God based on Pascal's rational undertaking and approach, for those people, God has reserved a special place in hell. So in other words, just to believe in God out of rational thinking, mathematics, statistics, that was not appreciated, it seems. So it's more the idea that there should be trust, faith, without asking for evidence, and without asking for statistics or anything like that. So the Christian church was not so happy about that approach. Even though we find the very same principle in Ariyadhammika Sutta, where the Buddha himself said that the belief in rebirth is a good belief because, again, for the same way of analyzing. So blind faith, blind belief is not requested, is not demanded in our Buddhist tradition. But it's also not rejected as something bad or unwholesome. Depends on whom or what we believe. So, speaking about a lot of wholesomeness, all the good karma done throughout the day, should we also share that with our departed relatives and friends?
Yes.
Okay, I agree. Let's do this together. Idang me nyatinang hotu sukhita hontu nyatayo. Idang no nyatinang hotu sukhita hontu nyatayo. Idang vo nyatinang hotu sukhita hontu nyatayo. Ettavata ca amhihi sampadang punya sampadang sabbe satta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. And let us also make an aspiration towards Nibbana. Please repeat after me. Idang me punyang asavakkaya vahang hotu. Idang me punyang nibbanassa paccayo hotu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.